Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to be discussing missing episodes, and my question to you is, what if you could recover one episode from every story that has missing episodes, except the stories with only one missing episode, because there's just not much of a choice in that, is it? So if you could pick one episode from every missing story, or every story that has a missing episode, minus the ones like Mission to the Unknown, 10th Planet, and Web of Fear. Because, again, there's no challenge to that. So we're going to look at the other 23 stories that are affected by missing episodes, and I'm going to tell you what episode I would pick, and we'll find out down in the comments which ones you would pick. Now, you'll notice a trend with me. This doesn't always happen, but a lot of times I like final episodes. One of the reasons why I really want Will in Space animated is because the final episode exists. Something about having the final episode really works for me. I like being able to watch the final episode of a story with surviving footage. It's one of the reasons why I get so frustrated with 10th Planet, because I've got episode 1, I've got episode 2, I've got episode 3, and I have a good animation for episode 4. That point will come up more than once in this list. And the list doesn't quite go in chronological order. I was not really paying attention when I was writing it. But we're going to start off with Marco Polo. If I could pick any, I haven't listened to the recon. I've listened to the 30-minute cut down, but not the recon. But if I could pick any, I would probably pick episode 7 just because it's the last one. Like I said, there's some of these stories I've never seen, so it's a little harder to pick since I've never seen or heard them. And it's hard to take a judge from a 7-episode story that's cut down into a 30-minute recon. But I would say episode 7. Galaxy 4, definitely episode 4. That way we would have the second half of the story. I definitely wouldn't do episode 1 because we have about 6 minutes of episode 1 that still exist from the guy who was part of the Doctor Who Society that he had that. So we still have about 6 minutes of episode 1. And I would hate to be able to watch that, then episode 2, episode 3, and then have to go back to a recon. Picking episode 4 of Galaxy 4 means we have the last half of the story complete. And I would enjoy that more. So episode 4 of Galaxy 4. For the invasion, this was a tricky one for the invasion. With 1 and 4 missing, I would be fine with either. I mean, I love both, but if I got either, I would be super excited. Hey, an episode of the invasion recovered, because I love the invasion. I think it is objectively Troughton's best Cyberman story. Although Moonbase might be my favorite, but Invasion is definitely objectively the best. If I could pick, I would probably pick episode 4. 1, because while I like the animation, it is a little rough at the end when they're escaping by helicopter. The animation doesn't really do a good job with that, conveying what's going on. It can get a little confusing. Plus, I just like the fact that as much as I would love episode 1, especially with that conversation between the Doctor, Jamie, and Vaughn at the beginning, it's easier for me to jump in, watch an animated episode, and then have 7 episodes in a row of live action. I'm not having to mentally switch gears as much. So I watch it in animation, and then I'm to the good stuff. Whereas then if I got episode 1, I have to watch 3 episodes, switch to animation, switch back to live action. And so I would probably pick episode 4, but I'd be happy either way. Next on the list is the Ice Warriors, episodes 2 or 3. I don't really remember what happens in the 2, but I think I would go with episode 3, because I think it's episode 2, which mostly has the scenes with the creature in the base with Victoria, making her do what he wants, and that's kind of uninteresting. I mean, Ice Warriors does tend to plot a bit. It is 2 episodes too long. But between episodes 2 and 3, I would probably get episode 3. I need to rewatch it again to be 100% certain. But right now, if you put me on the spot and was like, which one? Pick one. I'd be like, you bully. All right, episode 3. Dare he forced me to pick which one I'm taking. Yeah, definitely episode 3. Reign of Terror. Getting back to Hartnell. Reign of Terror between 4 and 5. I would probably take 5. I would take whichever one has that really awkward scene in the house when, like, Barbara's talking to this one guy, and I'd swear the camera cuts back and forth between them, like, in the span of, like, 2 sentences. It's like, cut, 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 cut. I'm like, wow, the camera work is wonky. That's one scene. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It just, I'm like, I would pick whichever one that one is. I'm not quite certain. But that aside, I'd probably pick episode 5 because it's closer to the end. I'm really glad episode 6 of Reign of Terror does exist. I mentioned before, again, I like final episodes. It does take a little shifting gears going from the camera work of the live action to the way they do the camera work of the animations, and then back to the way they do the camera work of the live action. But again, I like stories whether a final episode survives. That's a big deal for me, and I'm really glad the last episode of Reign of Terror does. So I would probably pick episode 5 since it's right before 6, so I'd have the last 2 episodes in live action. For the Crusade, definitely episode 4. I wouldn't want to watch episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and then have a recon for 4. That's what I call 10th planet syndrome, and I've already addressed how that bugs me. So I would definitely pick episode 4. That way I could watch episode 1, manage through the recon of episode 2, and then watch episodes 3 and 4, and that would be phenomenal. Myth Makers, I've never seen the recon for Myth Makers or heard the CD. I've read the book, but I don't know how the book breaks into episode segments. Plus, I don't know how much the book adds in that's not in the stories. To play it safe, I'd say episode 4 probably. Just because the final episode tends to be when a lot of stuff happens in a lot of stories. You know, because everything has to resolve. Everything has to be tidied up and resolved, and sometimes Deus Ex Machina. So there's usually a lot of stuff going on in the final episode. And a lot of these, you know, you need the visuals for that. You need the visuals to make these stories work. So a lot of times I go with the final episode, and that's what I would do here. Dalek's Master Plan, same thing, episode 12. I mean, we have... The episodes we have are spread out a bit with episodes 2, 5, and 10, so we do have a bit of a spreading out, but I would want episode 12. I think 12 is the one where Sarah Kingdom dies, Jean Marsh's character. If I remember correctly, I'm not certain, I've never listened to it. But her death is supposed to be pretty graphic and pretty good. I've seen still pictures from it. Now, that seems like a pretty cool scene. So I would love to have it for that, and again, because it wraps up it. And I mean, it's Dalek's Master Plan. Who wouldn't want the final episode of Dalek's Master Plan? And then the story would also be, a third complete, which would be really cool. Celestial Toy Maker, I went with episode 3. That way the final half of the story would be complete. Plus, it seems like there's more going on in episode 3. I've never listened to the recon of it. I've read the Target novel of it, but that was like back in the 90s, so it's very vague in my head. But I like the idea of I could watch episode 1 and 2 in a recon, and then 3 and 4 I could actually watch. I would enjoy that. Again, another reason why I think I could sit through a recon of Toy Maker is that final episode exists. I can put up with a lot if the final episode's there and that final episode is there. So I could handle a recon of Toy Maker probably now if they actually like put it out on DVD or something. And it was a decent recon, not like that Underwater Menace crap. But yeah, I'd love to have the last half of the story. So I'd go episode 3. The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. I would pick whatever episode has that Hartnell speech everybody always talks about. Again, I've never listened to that one. I've never seen the recon. I've never read the book. I'm not really sure what's going on with the Massacre. All I know is it's set in the past, and Hartnell's playing 2 people because he's playing somebody else that looks just like the Doctor. You know, very enemy of the world stuff going on. And somewhere in there, apparently Hartnell delivers an amazing speech. I would pick whatever episode that is. Now, if they put me on the spot, I'd say, again, episode 4. I like final episodes, so I would say episode 4. But I would want the one that has that speech in it. Savages, again, episode 4. Not just because it's the final episode, but it's the episode when Steven leaves. I think most people would agree that's the important one to get. I've never listened to the Savages, so I don't know beat for beat which one has the most cool stuff going on, which one needs the most visuals to understand and follow. But I think a lot of people would like to have the visual representation of Steven leaving, so I would pick episode 4 on that. Power of the Daleks, episode 1. So switching gears a little bit. Again, I don't always pick the last episode. Episode 1 because it's Troughton's first episode, and I want that. I want that opening scene in the TARDIS with the newly regenerated Second Doctor and Ben and Polly, and then everything going on as the Doctor starts to talk to me. What are you here for? To examine! When he's examining the Dalek capsules. I want everything that happens in that first episode. I'd be happy with any of Power of the Daleks. I love Power of the Daleks so much. It's one of my favorite Dalek stories. But if I could pick any episode, it would be episode 1. I feel like it's essential Doctor Who. And definitely one of my top 5 episodes I would recover if I could. Number 13, the Highlanders. That's where I'm at now. The Highlanders. I would probably say episode 1, just because it introduces Jamie, and I like Jamie. Although, going by the novel, I do like that one scene in the novel when the Doctor kind of tricks the guy into closing his eyes, like he bangs his head on the table. It's like, do you have headaches? It's this really funny scene. It's in the novel. I don't know if it's actually in the episode, but it's absolutely hilarious. If it's as hilarious in the episode as it is in the book, if Troughton is just on point, like he probably is, I would probably want whatever episode that takes place in, because I just imagine it's hilarious. But other than that, I would want episode 1. Underwater Menace, episode 4. No contest. Again, 10th Planet Syndrome, I don't want. I don't want Underwater Menace, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and then a recon. I would be so deflated when I got to the recon. I would much rather watch the recon for episode 1 and then be able to watch episodes 2, 3, and 4. That would be great. So definitely episode 4. No 10th Planet Syndrome. No thank you. For the Moonbase, episode 3. I would be fine either way, though. The animation for Moonbase is probably my favorite, but there is still a little bit of episode 1 that's a little wonky with them walking around on the moon. Once they're in the Moonbase, it's fine. But I like a lot of the stuff going on in episode 3, and I would love to see the actual footage of that. Plus, I'm not having to mentally change gears as much. I can watch the animation, and then it switches to live action for the rest of the story, which I like. So I'd be happy with either one, because I love the Moonbase. It's my favorite Patrick Troughton performance as the Second Doctor. I think he's just phenomenal in it. But if I could pick, I'd say episode 3. The Massacre Terror. I'd take any of them, I think. I'm pretty satisfied. If there's one story that I'm satisfied 100% with the animation, it's the Massacre Terror, because I like the liberties taken with it, since the original version didn't seem like it was that up to snuff production-wise. I actually truly love the animation. I'm actually fine with just the animation for it. It's the one story I could say I'm fine with the animation. But if I could pick one to recover, it'd probably be episode 3, because I do enjoy in the recons the scenes when Jamie's down in the cave area and he's running around and the Doctor's trying to do all those calculations with Polly to figure out how to do that. That just strikes me as that would be done in a very humorous way, with him trying to figure out how all the pipes work. And I'm trying to remember if that's the episode that has him writing on the chalkboard thing. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 that has him writing on the chalkboard. I like that scene. So I think I would say episode 3. Most people would probably figure episode 4, but I think I would say episode 3 of Massacre Terror if I could pick just one. Faceless Ones. I'd probably say episode 2. I usually don't, because to me episode 2 not a lot happens in most stories, which is crazy, because I think pretty much every single Troughton story that only has one surviving episode, it's always episode 2. You ever notice that? Abominable Snowmen, 1 episode survives, it's episode 2. Space Pirates, 1 episode survives, it's episode 2. There's another one. I can't remember what it is. Abominable Snowmen, Space Pirates. There's another one. I'd swear there's another one. I can't think of what it is, but it's episode 2. If there is, it's episode 2. I swear there's another one that's going to drive me nuts. but I can't think of it. Maybe there is only 2. I'd swear there's a third one, but if it is, it's episode 2. Evil of the Daleks. It's Evil of the Daleks. Which the one episode that survives? Episode 2. If there's a Troughton story with only one surviving episode, it's episode 2. So I would go episode 2 in the Faceless Ones just because we'd have the first half of the story. And I kind of like that. Especially since we do have the animation for it. And I like the animation for it. It's a little step back from Massacre, but way better than Fury and what Abominable Snowmen looks like we're going to get. And I actually enjoy Faceless One's animation a lot. So I'd be perfectly fine doing the back half with animation. And being able to watch, the first half of the story all in live action would be fine for me. I would enjoy that. So I would pick episode 2 of Faceless Ones. For Evil of the Daleks, episode 6. I know a lot of people might think it would be episode 7. But I'm actually very satisfied with the animation for episode 7. And even episode 6, to be honest. But I like the animation for episode 7 a lot. But I like in episode 6, I like the beginning when they're playing train with the Doctor. The friendly Daleks, the human Daleks. I love the human Daleks. And they're playing train with the Doctor. I'd like to see that. When they first end up on Skaro, I would love to see that. I would love to see the Doctor meeting the Emperor in live action. That cool cliffhanger. And especially that line when the Doctor's like, I've stopped you and I don't care what you do to me now. I would love to have the live action version of that. And it's such a good cliffhanger when he reveals the Dalek factor to him. He's like, what a cliffhanger. So yeah, I would say episode 6, because I love episode 6 a lot in general. And I love the surviving episode 2. It just so far outshines the animated episode 2. And I love the last 2 episodes of the story in animated form, so I'm sure in surviving form I'd love them. But episode 6 is the one I would pick between 6 and 7. Abominable Snowmen, episode 6. I'd just go ahead and get the final episode. Again, everything is kind of resolving in that one, so I would expect the visuals to have a lot going on, because I've never listened to the recon, but I have read the novel, the Target novel of Abominable Snowmen, which I really liked. And again, there's a lot going on, a lot of stuff resolving, a lot of stuff that probably needs to be seen through the visual medium, so I would pick the final episode of Abominable Snowmen Part 6. Fury from the Deep, this is the hardest one. I literally wrote down 6 or 2 or 5. The final episode has a lot going on. From some of the behind-the-scenes footage, we've seen the attack in the lab at the end, and it looks really cool. That looks like a really cool sequence. I'll bet the transmission version of it looked really good. I'd be happy with... my only problem with episode 6 is it has the helicopter bit in it, and that goes on for too long. So I'd worry it would eat into time, because the helicopter stuff, while being funny, does go on too long. Episode 2, I would love to have more of Oak and Quill with the wife, because that does seem like a genuinely creepy scene from what we've seen of it. And so I would like to see more of that. And I think that happened in episode 2. There's a lot of cool, atmospheric, creepy stuff I think is going on in episode 2. And I'm trying to remember if that's the episode when she first pricks her finger. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2. All of that building tension I would like to see that I think comes from episode 2. I would enjoy that. And then episode 5 I like a lot too. It has a really good cliffhanger as well. So I'd be happy with episode 5. Either one of those 3 would be fine with me. Wheel in Space. I wrote down episode 1, but I think I'd be good with any. Episode 1 would be cool because it'd be nice to see how the adventure starts out. I mean, we have pretty much the halfway point with episode 3, and then we have the final episode with episode 6. I'd say either episode 1 or 5. Because if I had 5, I would have the last 2 episodes in live action. That'd be cool. But if with episode 1, I'd be able to have the beginning of the story in live action too. Even though I would be having to mentally switch gears between live action, animation, live action, animation, animation, live action. And that could get a little bothersome. But if I could pick, I'd say episode 1. And the Space Pirates, I would say episode 6. Again, Space Pirates episode 6 is probably where everything resolves. I get the impression Space Pirates is a very visual story with a very slow first half. Episode 2 is the only one that survives. It seems like that's kind of a filler episode where not much happens. Like episode 1 is probably setting up the situation. Then I'm guessing like episodes 2 and 3 or 2, 3, and 4 are just filler. Because this was originally supposed to be a 4-parter. And so it seems like it has a lot of padding. Episode 6 is probably where everything has to wrap up. There's probably a lot of visual stuff going on in that episode. So easily, more so than even most of my others, I would pick the final episode of this one. Just so we could actually see how the story ends, all the visuals going on, and maybe reappraise the story slightly. And then the last one on the list, because I forgot to mention it before, was The Smugglers. And of course I went with episode 4. I've never read The Smugglers, I've never seen The Smugglers, recon, heard it. I don't even know what's really going on in The Smugglers, except there's some smugglers involved. And I have seen a short clip of, I think a guy takes a knife and throws it into another guy's back or something like that. Somebody stabs another guy. I've seen that little clip. That's about it. Other than that, I don't know anything about The Smugglers. So I play it safe and go with the final episode because that's probably when all the cool stuff is going on. So that has been my list of if I could save one episode from every missing story. Just one. The one I would pick. I want to know what you think of my choices and which ones you would pick. So comment down below and let me know because I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to support what I do, there is a link to that in the description below. I want to give a shout out to 2 of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the 5th Doctor. I appreciate their continued support and the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me, as well as a link to my Amazon wish list, which I update regularly. I think I just added the Twilight Zone collection to it on Blu-ray because I love the original Twilight Zone. It's got Burgess Meredith. I love me some Burgess Meredith. So that's down there as well. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.